Obviously, this is a huge development, but there is an if hanging over this. You need approval from the European Medicines Agency. What is the status of that?
No, it's in fact what goes alongside today's announcement. We had three major announcements. One was, of course, the signing of the agreement with the EU, which says that there's continued very significant demand for our type of product. The second was is that we have data that just came out that was announced today that shows that our vaccine works really well and it could be very effective against the variants that we all hear about now, and those data were prepared today. And the third, and these all fit together very well, is that we've now filed our first regulatory filing for approval of the vaccine, for authorization of the vaccine. We filed it first in India and in Indonesia and the Philippines, which a couple things. One is India is a country where we're working with our partner, and they know that process really. Have been working with the DCGI, the FDA of the NDA, very closely, and that's why we got an early filing there. Indonesia and Philippines are desperate for a vaccine, and they're following and we filed with them too. So this is just a first filing. We will be filing with the European Medicines Authority in weeks, and with MHRA in the UK, and ultimately with the FDA. The expectation is the MHRA will be in September. We're in August now, and EMA and the FDA will follow. So I think that this is just the first step of a cascading number of filings, of regulatory filings.
So let's focus on the places where you have submitted those filings. When do you believe the vaccine will be available, and where will it be available first?
Yeah. So what's going to be available is we are stockpiling vaccine now, and we're stockpiling many tens of millions of doses, so that when the regulatory agencies do approve, that we are able to ship at almost a moment's notice. So that's a big deal. When the sequence of approvals will come presumably from one or more of the three agencies that we've just filed with. We're not in the business of predicting how quickly the regulatory agencies will approve, but I can give you insight that although we've just submitted the data within the last days, we've had meetings with a substantial number of people in these regulatory agencies going over all the questions that you would expect to be asked, meaning that they've begun the intense review process. So I can't predict when it's going to be reviewed or when it's going to be approved, but they're doing all the things we would want to have early approval.
Now, Novavax and really so many manufacturers have been dealing with supply chain issues. I'm curious what your manufacturing goals are now that you are in this position.
No, that's a great question, because we've talked throughout the year about the difficulty of the tasks that we're attempting, which is to get large scale production in about 8 facilities globally, and it's really a challenge. It has been a challenge, and in part because we can't get some of the raw materials. Simple things like filters that we filter our product with, media which we use to feed the cells that we grow them in, have been in globally in short supply. That is becoming in the past. I think all the suppliers have done really well in scaling up their production capacity to meet the pandemic demand. And right now we're able to produce in all of our facilities. So I think starting in the third quarter, we're able to get to these levels of production that we're predicting. We have, for the first time, we have kept with the forecast that we made 90 days ago, which will be at a rate of 100 million doses a month starting by the end of September, and 150 million doses per month by the end of December. And so, that's an expectation of a couple billion doses for next year. So I think we've climbed that mountain.
Now, one huge advantage of your vaccine is that it can be stored in a standard refrigerator. Talk to us a little bit about the technology behind the vaccine. How does it fit in relative to the mRNA vaccines like Moderna and Pfizer that we're more familiar with at this point?
Right, you're right, and it's an important advantage. The stability we make, the product is a protein that forms as I say, it's a particle. It forms a trimer of a protein. It's very stable in the formulation that we can make it. So it's certainly stable at what's called 2 to 8 degrees, which is standard refrigeration. It's probably stable at room temperature for some amount of time, and it makes the distribution process very easy. Globally, we've been doing vaccines for a long time that require refrigeration. So there is a global cold chain. So that doesn't have to be repeated. The problem with the RNA vaccines right now is they do require dry ice and freezing, and it's a problem that those manufacturers are trying to work around. But for now, it creates a disadvantage for a frozen vaccine.
Meantime, obviously, the work you're doing is incredibly important, and you, as a chief executive, are dealing with COVID, how to deal with COVID among your own staff. We're seeing all of these companies delay their return to work plans. Have you changed your return to work plans? Are you mandating vaccines for your own employees?
Yeah, so all of our employees have been vaccinated. We're a vaccine company, and so that's an important point. We are dealing with the issue. I think the whole world is changing and trying to figure out how they're going to deal with bringing employees back on board again, so we're working with it. We, like others, have in the lab. You don't have any choice. You have to have employees coming to work in the lab. Other activities can be done from home. I miss seeing the employees, so I prefer to have employees come into the office. But we're working through that like many companies are.
Now, shares took off after you struck this deal with the EU. Talk to us about the longer-term business plan. Does Novavax plan to stay independent?
Yeah, I think we've been building an organization. This is in let's say the first quarter of last year. We had roughly 90 or 100 people in the company in the U.S. and another 50 in Sweden. We now have over 1,000 employees. And at first, those employees were in the analytical and manufacturing side and quality side and building that up. But more recently, we've been building up a whole infrastructure of commercial. The good news is that our first deliveries, it's not like bringing on a new drug where you have to have thousands of sales reps. We're going to be shipping to central warehouses for government distribution of the vaccine. And so we have time to build up a more natural sales force that can market a seasonal annual flu vaccine and a COVID vaccine. Hopefully they'll be together. So our plan, we know that there's a long-term plan for COVID. It's going to be around for a long time. And we think we have the vaccine of choice when it turns to a commercial product. And so that's our plan is to be the lead COVID vaccine.